Tell people in.
Good morning. Good morning, Spiritual Life Center. Please stand in singing. Holy God, move in me. Good morning. Glad you're here. Holy God, move in me. Holy God, move in me. That you may know my faith, and I may know your grace. Holy God, move in me. Holy God, live as me. Holy presence, live as me. And be an open vessel, a channel of your dreams. Holy presence, live as me. I put my faith into action, and know you're good in all I see. I'm powerful beyond measure, with an awesome God moving through me. Holy God, move in me. Holy God, move in me. That you may know my face, and I may know your grace. Holy God, move in me. I put my faith into action, and know you're good in all I see. I'm powerful beyond measure, with an awesome God moving through me. Holy God, move in me. Holy God, move in me. That you may know my faith, and I may know your grace. Holy God, move in me. One more time. Holy God, move in me. All together now. Holy God, move in me. Those two are available too. No, those are available.
Good morning, Spiritual Life Center.
Good morning.
Good morning, Paula. So some of you know who I am. I am Paula Mandela. I have the honor of being the director of the music program here at Spiritual Life Center.
Yay!
Yay! Christy told me I needed to introduce myself.
Yeah, good idea.
So,
Yes. Amen.
so today we officially launch into our 20th anniversary year. And on this day, we honor and commemorate our co-founder and mother of Spiritual Life Center, Faith Moran. Yes. We customarily celebrate birthdays on the first Sunday of the month, and today, March 4th, happens to be Faith's birthday. And there will be cake. 20 years ago, a vision was born in the hearts and minds of Faith and her husband, Michael, to create an interfaith community where people from all faith traditions could gather together and study and learn from each other. This was a grand idea, a pretty fresh idea at the time, 20 years ago, and one that caught fire and inspired many interfaith communities since then. There are many in this room who had the privilege of knowing Faith and experiencing her ministry. My first year at Spiritual Life Center was Faith's last year. As I witnessed the end of an era, as her debilitating illness took her slowly from our sight. Our songbirds today, Christy Mattal, Jennifer Enright, and Carol Van Bruggen, were all very prominent figures in the early days of the music ministry. So they are here today to sing for Faith and for us. Patrick Polson, who retired in 2017, has come to play with us today. How many years, Patrick, did you play in the music ministry?
I started in 1999.
Oh my gosh.
18 years.
18 years. So almost since the beginning. And Stephen as well has been in the band for many, many years. Michael Lawson, in a little bit, will be joining us on the cello. He also knew Faith and Michael when they were back at doing the Wednesday nights at Christ Unity. And Dominic has more recently become involved in the music ministry. Faith loved music, and we added a couple of songs, as you will notice, to the service today that were her favorites. For those of us who did not have the privilege and opportunity to know Faith personally, you will get a glimpse into a beautiful soul who had a very special relationship with her beloved God and this precious planet with all of its inhabitants. Undoubtedly, Faith's greatest passion was for the children, and there is a story behind the pennies you find on your seats today. When Faith was head of the youth ministry in Bellevue, Washington, she taught a song to the children called Magic Penny. Now, if you've ever been a teacher or ever had a young child, you may very well know this little ditty, so sing along. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Love is something if you give it away, give it away, give it away. Love is something if you give it away, you end up having more. It's just like a magic penny, hold it tight and you won't have any. Pennies spinning and have so many that roll all over the floor. Love is something that you give it away, give it away, give it away. Love is something that you give it away, you'll end up having more.
So now you know the story of the pennies. This gave Faith the idea to spread pennies all around the place. And when she saw the sheer delight in the faces of the children, it became one of her signature moves. In fact, as we were preparing for this service, the staff noticed a magic penny just happened to be in the courtyard. That's Faith, giving her signs, still and always present. As part of a therapy program, Faith got involved with painting, and the youth ministry is in the courtyard today with a small remaining number of prints of Faith's paintings that are available for you today if you would like to have one of those precious keepsakes. So here we stand at the threshold of our 20th year and 10 years since Faith made her transition into her next great spiritual adventure. The numbers 20 and 10 represent the completion of a cycle. According to numerology, the number 20 also carries with it the energies of all the planets and the need to acquire patience and wait. Faith was known to say that she had the most special birth date in the year, as it was the only date that was an action. As we pause today to love, serve, and remember our beginnings, I'm sure if we listen carefully, we will hear Faith's voice gently urging us to march forth into the next 20 years of Spiritual Life Center. You may want to locate the nearest box of tissues, We've got plenty of them out there today, as we are likely to dip into the well of some very deep emotions. So let's get started.
Please join us in singing our welcome song, My Soul is Welcome Here. I'm in the right place at the right time. I am just where I am meant to be. I'm in the right place at the right time. I am just where I am meant to be. I'm in the right place at the right time. I am just where I am meant to be. I'm in the right place at the right time. I am just where I am meant to be. Oh, my soul. Oh, my soul is welcome here. Oh, my soul is welcome here. I am getting the message loud and clear. My soul is welcome here. I'm in the right place at the right time. I am just where I am meant to be. I'm in the right place at the right time. I am just where I am meant to be. Oh, my soul is welcome here. Oh, my soul is welcome here. I am getting the message loud and clear. My soul is welcome here. Oh, my soul is welcome here. Oh, my soul is welcome here. I am getting the message loud and clear. My soul is welcome here. I am getting the message loud and clear. My soul is welcome here. 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 My soul, we are welcome now. Everyone is welcome here, brother, sister. Father, Father, you're welcome now. My soul is welcome here. We're welcome. I am getting the message loud and clear. My soul is welcome here.
Your souls are welcome here. That's okay. Good morning. And welcome to the Spiritual Life Center experience. And it will be an experience today.
And, here we are. And don't you all look fabulous? So this morning, we welcome you, Reverend James Trapp.
I welcome you as well. Good to have you here.
Thank you. And it's good to have so many familiar faces. So many beautiful faces. And Taylor and Melissa and Sophia Faith and Liam, the Moran family. So
Yeah.
good to see you. And you know, there's an Irish saying that if you're here, you're a Moran. Right? Oh, I just channeled that one. So this morning, we greet you in the name of all that is beautiful, and all that is warm, and all that is so charmingly, sometimes quirky, but always affirming, this community, which is Spiritual Life Center. And we know that whether you're here for the first time, whether you're here for the 1,000th time, whether you're sitting here, whether you're live streaming from a remote place and you're in your jammies drinking your latte, we just know that there is no accident, and we are all here by divine appointment. And thank you so much all for keeping your appointment here today. And if you would keep your other appointments that might ring, jingle, chime, or buzz if you would turn those off and silence them, please.
And in that space, we have been acknowledging the Season for Nonviolence, which we really bring up the principles that were taught by Mahatma Gandhi as well as Martin Luther King between January and April. And each week, in order to remind us of those principles, we have a Season for Nonviolence reading. And Reverend Janae this morning is our Season for Nonviolence reader. So welcome, Reverend Janae.
Well, good morning. Excuse me. Today's message is, today I relabel my mistakes as lessons. I live in the present, honoring all the expressions that continue to enrich my life. By incorporating the lessons I have learned from these experiences, I become a better human being. I remember my spiritual nature, and I know that I am not my mistakes. I am a beloved child of God. I live in a world that God created, and today I call all of my memories good. I nourish a growing awareness of God's presence in all of my life experiences, calling me to be all that I can be. And I say, thank you, God. I realize that God calls me to wholeness, holiness, in the everyday events and circumstances of my life. All of my behaviors and experiences, whether or not I've judged them as mistakes, are lessons. Today, I am grateful for everything that has happened in my life, and I call it good. Relabeling our mistakes as lessons. Knowing that it's Faith's birthday and that we're honoring Faith today, I wanted to share from a perspective of how sometimes the challenges that are presented to us in life are also considered mistakes. But those too are lessons. And so I'd like to share a little bit with you about my lessons and Faith Moran. My first conscious experience with presence was through Faith Moran. Her and Michael came to Christ Unity Church to start a Wednesday night service probably 25 years ago. And I was a very new member and brand spanking new to spirituality and religion, and I started attending those services. Faith came alone. She was here for about 6 weeks by herself while Michael finished up the business in Washington. And so I grew to really love Faith Moran and the sincerity of her message. About 3 weeks in, my Aunt Barbara had a brain aneurysm and was in the hospital in critical condition. And so I mustered up the courage to ask for prayers in that part of the service. And Faith prayed with me, and I felt it. I felt a connection to Faith and to God and to my Aunt Barbara, and I saw a vision of her laying in the hospital bed as a pure white light body, and a peace came over me, and I had never experienced anything like that before. The next day, my mom called me to see if I had been to my Aunt Barbara's the night before, and I said, no. And she said, well, I visited her today, and she told me that you were with her last night. And I'm telling you, that changed me forever. I really didn't know what was going on there, but Faith knew. And she grew my soul in more ways than I can share. It was Faith who inspired me to be a minister, and she supported me in and through that entire process. And when I was nervous to come up here and speak in front of the congregation, she shared with me how she handled nervousness. And she said that she would physically take a step that was symbolic for her stepping out of her small self and stepping into presence and giving the talk from there. Now, fast forward to when we as a congregation were given the news that Faith's illness was terminal. We were sure it was a mistake. It had to be, not Faith. Our reading today speaks of how our experiences are not mistakes but lessons. And I wanted to share with you how Faith's lesson of presence was really solidified for me during her illness. As many of you know, it affected her mind. And one of the things I want to mention is when she prayed with me or when she prayed with anyone else, no matter how scattered her thinking was at the time, when she prayed, she was spot on. The presence of God was so present and clear with her. Another, and when that occurred with me, what I realized is that practice of hers wasn't a practice, it was just who she was. And the other thing that really spoke to me was when we were having the last Christmas service that Faith would be a part of. And you all remember that Faith always spoke the part of Mary. It was tradition. And she wanted to speak that part of Mary. So I offered to help her practice, and that woman practiced and practiced. And just before the service, I knew she had it, but there were still those points where she'd stumble a little. But when that service started and Faith got up there, she took a minute, she looked at everybody in the audience, and she delivered that reading of Mary flawlessly. Flawlessly. And I remember sitting there so struck by her and so struck by the presence and the power that moved through her regardless of her mental condition. Faith was the embodiment of presence. She lived it. And it occurred to me that the profound way she anchored this teaching in me was only possible through her illness. Faith continued to teach right up to the moment that she took her last breath. And she influenced so many of us. And she still continues to influence me. And I know that she is still touching every heart that walks into this room every Sunday, every Wednesday. So are there mistakes? It was Faith Moran that taught me that God is in everything. And God is every bit of it, no matter what it looks like. So even though none of us would consciously choose this path, only a mighty soul like Faith Moran would choose a path that would teach us up until the very end of her life. Thank you, Faith Moran. Thank you for the message of your life, the message of your whole life. We're so glad you were born, and we love you so. Thank you.
So it was only appropriate that we celebrate her birthdays and any other March birthdays. Please stand so we can acknowledge you. Anybody born in March?
Yeah. And I don't know about, did anybody notice that as Janae was sharing her reading, she did this motion? And anybody that knew Faith Moran knew she was feisty. And when she put her hand on her hip, you better just watch out. Right? So I appreciated that moment. So this week, our Wow Wednesday program is an Afro-Caribbean facilitated drum circle by our own Dominic Garcia. And if that beat is a little not yours, then you can join Reverend Deborah Phillips in the chapel for a quiet spiritual discussion. So Reverend Deborah's right here. And speaking of the Wednesday service, we always start with soup in the fall, in the winter, and then salad at 6. And now we need a few hands to craft some of those soups and salads. If you would love to create salad on Wednesday or soup on Wednesday, see Deborah. She's right there. And also, we have coming up on March 14th a wonderful program with we call them the Gales. So Reverend Dr. Gail Darren, who's in the house, and Gail Vinson will present a program, The Power of the Dark Night of the Soul. It promises to be a wonderful evening, and Ann Roach and Paula Mandela will highlight and enhance that evening of powerful mystical offerings with their beautiful music. So don't miss that program.
How many were here Friday for the movie Heal? Anybody here saw that? Yes. You know, it was a great movie. I think it has so much information in there packed in it. You have to probably watch it 3 or 4 times. But there was something that I got out of it. They said there were like 9 principles that they saw that made a difference for people who had healing experiences that the doctor said could not be healed. He said, now, number 1 is that you have to always reduce your stress. That was like a big factor to reduce stress in life. The second one is to enhance our intuitive faculties, and that was another way that individuals were able to move to a healing. They also released negative emotions or destructive emotions, affirmed the positive ones, and increased their spiritual connection. And there's one practice that is very helpful in achieving that, and that is meditation. And they mentioned that as a very important foundation for one to improve their health or to rise above any kind of disease that they're going through. And it just so happens I happen to have a meditation class that's going to start on Thursday for those who would like to learn a little bit about how to incorporate a simple but very powerful meditation practice in their life, or just to be part of a group to engage in a meditation experience on Thursday. So we're going to meet at 6:30 on Thursday, I think for 3 consecutive Thursdays, so we invite you to be part of that.
I think that sounds like a great opportunity. And another great opportunity coming up on Saturday, March 10th, is Reverend Dr. Gary Simmons will be with us here at SLC. And it's a Q&A program. It's here for us to ask the questions. We're shifting into mission-centric community. Come and find out what that's all about. Come and bring your answers, and be ready to have your answers questioned.
Very good.
Did you get that? Yeah.
Very
Don't
good.
miss that program of rich conversation.
Well, as you know, we had a couple of interim positions that need to be filled on our board of trustees, and we just wanted to announce that Rick Mercer and J.J. Gonsalves have been appointed to fulfill those positions. I saw Rick earlier, just acknowledge him. I don't know exactly where he is now. And, of course, most of you know J.G. And we also have 2 positions coming up open soon. So if you're interested in being part of the board of trustees and you have a calling for that, you can go into the table in the courtyard, I believe is where the cashier is, to get more information about a possibility of being a trustee at Unity Spiritual Life Center.
Yeah, and now we have a wonderful opportunity to welcome 2 souls, 2 amazing souls, 2 souls that are going to present our annual. Yeah, that's
Here
you.
they are. I know that you were kind of like
The Seder dinner.
the Seder dinner.
I was just stalling.
That's you. That's you.
All right, good to know. I'm affirmed.
Hi, good morning.
Morning.
So Ted and I want to invite you to our Passover Seder dinner, which is happening right here at Spiritual Life Center on Wednesday, March 28th. And last year, we celebrated Passover, which is the Jewish celebration of freedom, with a 75-person Seder in this very sanctuary that had the whole place filled to capacity. We had tables full of people singing and dining and laughing together.
That's right. Our Wednesday night salad crew made a delicious meal for everyone.
And the prayer chaplains did a special sacred hand-washing ceremony for every guest.
Yeah, we had interfaith prayers. The wine was flowing.
And there were some really fun sing-alongs.
Ilu hotzi hotzianu hotzianu mi Mitzrayim hotzianu mi Mitzrayim dayenu dayenu dayenu.
And the thing was,
dayenu.
Dayenu.
I'm just so excited.
I know.
Okay.
I know. It really was an evening for the SLC record books, but you know, it was a lot. And so this year we're thinking we're just going to keep it small and simple.
Whoa, wait, no way. I've already ordered 20 pounds of matzah for a full house for our Passover Seder.
You did?
Yeah, huh?
But Ted, we've only had 10 people RSVP so far, and if more people don't RSVP, then you and I are going to have to figure out how to consume 20 pounds of leftover matzah.
No problem. I've been working on some recipes. Let's see, we've got matzah smoothies, spaghetti and matzah balls, matzah frittata, chana matzala.
Well, I applaud your creativity, but I still feel like that is just a lot of unleavened bread for just 2 people to eat. So will some of you come to the Passover Seder dinner and help us eat it? Yay!
There will be wine and grape juice to wash it down, as well as delicious dinner, dessert, and some fun surprises.
And admission to the Seder is just a love offering, but you need to RSVP so we can be sure to set your place at the table. So you can RSVP. There's a clipboard out at the cashier table in the courtyard, or you can do it online at slcworld.org.
That's right, and we could really use some volunteers to help set up or tear down. We can't pay you, but I will make you a heaping helping of chicken fried matzah as a thank you gift.
Oh, you do not have to eat the chicken fried matzah.
More for me.
But you do have to RSVP, so we hope that you do, and we really look forward to celebrating with you on March 28th. Oh, do you have something to add?
Just one more thing. Die, enu, die, enu.
Shall I use both? Well, so we have some other important people to introduce you to. They're not going to sing, darn, but there are prayer chaplains and our ambassadors, and if you would please stand. Our ambassadors wear a rainbow ribbon, and they are here to greet you and point you in the direction if you have a question. And those prayer chaplains, they wear that white stole, and that's a mantle of the year that they've dedicated to providing sacred prayer for this community. They're here to pray with you confidentially, whether you have a challenge or a celebration. So be sure to see them after the service in the back of the sanctuary or in the courtyard. Thank you, chaplains. And if you're new here or not that familiar with us, please keep your bulletin. There is a lot of information about all the wonderful things that happen here.
And speaking of folks maybe here for the first time, if you're here for the very first time, in just for a few moments, we're going to ask you to raise your hand and give you some gifts. But we really want to let you know about the opportunity to get connected to Spiritual Life Center. We'll have you fill out a welcome card if you decide to do so, and you can drop that into the offertory basket at the end of the service or in the courtyard after the service is over as well.
And we have a beautiful shell lay for you. So now's the time. Raise your hand.
Anyone here for the first time today?
There's a
Keep your hand
beautiful
up.
blessing on that shell lay, and it says, "We believe there are many paths to the one God, and we are so grateful you joined us on your path today." Now is the most wonderful time to welcome our guests and to welcome each other.
We're going to ask you to please be seated at this time.
We have coming up to our platform some of the new members here at Spiritual Life Center. We want to acknowledge this morning. Yes, we have a very rambunctious group today. The spirit is high, is good, and we're all good. So these are just a few of those that are here this morning that we can acknowledge as being new members of Spiritual Life Center. And also what we do is realize that when they do that, they've stepped into that door of no return. You know? They'll continue to grow, develop, and unfold. And so we're going to have everyone join in and just affirm our new member declaration. And so we're going to we're going to say our new member declaration together, and then we're going to bless them. Today, I declare membership in Spiritual Life Center. I recognize that this commitment will bring me a deeper level of spiritual growth as I step into a fully committed level of participation and in support of the services, activities, classes, and groups at Spiritual Life Center. I realize that my life will take on new meaning and purpose. I am aware that this commitment in membership guides me to share my time, talent, and finances with my spiritual home, and that as I give, I also receive. I am committed to living the principles taught by Spiritual Life Center to the best of my ability. I pledge to share those principles with others through my thoughts, words, and actions. So welcome our new members of Spiritual Life Center. And we're going to give them a special blessing. If you mind standing, we're going to give them a special blessing that we all give to all children of God, but particularly our new members today. New members. We love you. We bless you. We appreciate you. And we behold God's love as you. God bless you.
Okay, this next song that we're going to sing was one of Faith's favorites, and we've sung it many, many, many times here at Spiritual Life Center. There will be some slideshow accompanying this song, but we would love it if you recall the lyrics to sing along with us.
I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and for you, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I see skies of blue and clouds of white, bright blessed day, oh, and the dark sacred night. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, are also on the faces of people How do you do? They're really saying, I love you. I hear babies cry. I watch them grow. They learn much more than I'll ever know. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Yes, I think to myself, what a wonderful
I invite you now to embody the words as we speak together our vision statement. Spiritual Life Center is a loving, vibrant family that welcomes home all people and accepts everyone, no exceptions. Weaving ancient spiritual traditions with emerging wisdom, we cultivate a spiritual deepening with the divine, each other, and our planet. Now let's sing this beautiful chant together as we prepare for meditation.
You are the heart, you are the hands, you are the voice of spirit on earth, and who you are, and all you do is a blessing to the You are the heart, you are the hands, you are the voice of spirit on earth, and who you are, and all you do is a blessing to the world. We are the heart, we are the hands, we are the voice of spirit on earth, and who we are, and all we do is a blessing to the world. I am the heart, I am the hands, I am the voice of spirit on earth, and who I am, and all I do is a blessing to the world. I am the heart, I am the hands, I am the heart, I am the hands,
Now, as we settle in more deeply, I invite you to close your eyes. Through the Spirit of God and by the magic of technology, we will have our meditation today by Faith Moran.
Peace, wisdom, the assurance of well-being. These and so much more are ours as we experience God's presence and pray together. Let us pause during this holy time for communion with our blessed Creator. As I open my heart to your sacred presence, dear God, I am filled with renewed awareness of life and the joy of living. My heart, my mind, my very soul is open to you, God. I want to know you more, Blessed Spirit. I want to love you more, and I want to experience you in everything I do. As I open the door of myself to you, I feel your presence. You are the strength and courage I need to move beyond any difficulty. The things that trouble me are floating away, making way for your peace. I know that I can rely on you to uphold me, to comfort me, to keep me strong and secure. Nothing can separate me from your loving Spirit. It wells up from within me as peace overflows into every area of my life. Even now, I breathe deeply and open the floodgates of my heart and soul to your sweet, sweet peace. No matter what I do, no matter where I go, your peace is always within me, always around me. Blessed peace, sweet peace. It fills me now as I relax in the silence. In the quietness of this blessed moment, I feel your sacred presence too, as love, love that is wisdom and inspiration. Your love alerts me to new possibilities and to new ways of living and loving and learning. We are so deeply blessed by your eternal love and presence in our lives and in the world. Amen.
Where it is dark, may I bring light. And where there is hate, let me For in the giving I do receive, and in pardoning is grace achieved. For in dying I'm born again into
Oh, thank you, Christy and Jennifer and Solar Connection, Paula, for setting all of that up. It's just a reminder that God is indeed good. All the time. You know, as I was thinking about acknowledging this 20th year for Spiritual Life Center, what kept coming up for me was a scriptural reference from the book of Jeremiah. And it said, Jeremiah was a bullfrog. Was a good friend of mine. Actually, what it says is that I know my thoughts toward you, thoughts of peace and not of ill, to give you an expected end. Something powerful, something wonderful as an expected end. You know, as we remember those who have come before us, Reverend Faith in particular as the co-founder of this community, knowing that she was a unity minister like myself, we realize that what our work is really about is not to set up ourselves as guru figures, but really to begin to give people back their own power and their connection to the presence of God. And I think more than anything else, along with Michael, that what they did, they caught a vision of the possibilities of this community. They caught the vision of what I would say came straight from the mind, straight from the heart of Spirit itself. And she and others have become the vessels for its expression. We are the vessels for its expression. And I think we're part of a movement, part of a consciousness that we are known by realizing that we are coming under the government of this presence. And even though we may have different labels and different pathways that we all have in this world, what's most important is how we show up. I think there's a book entitled The Future of God. I haven't read it, but I like the title, The Future of God, The Future of Religion. And I was thinking that if we began to think many years in advance, people will start looking back and say something to the effect, remember back in the old days when they used to have all of those religions? And everybody thought theirs was right. They thought theirs was right. You know, like the story of a gentleman who had made his transition and went to the pearly gates and met St. Peter. I think somebody said we should change it to, because it's always St. Peter. Why none of the others were there? You know, that always came to my mind. Why no one else? Well, we know that heaven is not a place, but a state of consciousness, but it's a story. And they were showing the gentleman around into all the wonderful places there, and they had different compartments. And he went over here, and there, you know, there were the Christians over here, and then, you know, the evangelicals over here, and, you know, the Catholics over here, and the Jehovah's Witnesses over there. And he said, well, why is everybody being so quiet? Why aren't saying anything? He said, shh, keep it low, because everybody here in their own group think they're the only ones here. They think they're the only ones that are here. But the reality is, it does not matter what religion or what beliefs that we have, what we say we believe in. The question is, are we practicing what it is that we say we believe in? It's what we do that matters, whether we believe in anything or not. You know, there's a story many years ago that I recall about a riveting manhunt that took place in the state of Georgia. And there was a young man by the name of Brian who was charged with the death of a judge and 2 other people and some other charges, and so he was on the loose. And he was hiding from the authorities. And he broke into a particular house where a woman was at the time named Ashley. And according to the story, he tied her up, put her, you know, in a room, told her he would not hurt her if she did what he said. So she didn't scream, she didn't panic or anything like that. But something intervened between them in that moment. And for some reason, she decided to talk with him. And she said she did not see him, you know, as a monster, but as another being, another human being. She told him about her own story, how her husband had died in her arms, how she had become addicted to drugs and had got arrested for drunk driving and assault. She had to give up her daughter. And she showed him her wounds of life. But she also was able to see his. And that particular time, she was reading a book about the purpose of life. And she was reading from the chapter that was noting that every moment is an opportunity to serve another. And she quoted from a scriptural reference that says that we shall know others by their fruits. We shall know them by their fruits. And in that holy instant where she had an opportunity to serve, and she did so by showing her oneness with him, by getting in alignment with grace, getting in alignment with spirit. And something happened within him as well. And he said to her that, you know, I think that you have been sent as an angel of God for me. That you're really my sister, and I'm your brother. And that he was lost, and that somehow God had sent him to her in that moment. But the way that she showed up, her presence, was really her life message, reminding us that her message was her life in that instant, in that interaction. So we're talking about making our life our message. And of course, I came up with Mahatma Gandhi at one time when he was asked by some reporters when he was coming into town, what's your message? And he was thinking that he was going to say something very philosophical, that he was going to say something about his religion and his background and some sort of high theoretical stuff. And he simply responded to the man and turned the tables on him and said that my life is my message. What I do is my message. And so he moved us away from a concept of what religion was about, and saying ultimately what we do is our religion. What we do. You know, I think it was Maya Angelou that says that how we make other people feel is what they remember. You know what Reverend Janae had said, how she felt as a result of coming in contact with Reverend Moran made a difference in her life. And sometimes we have just regular people that make a difference, and they are demonstrating what their real message is in the world. And I remember when I was in high school, I had a counselor that had me drop a class that I really liked in history. He said I should take this public speaking course, and I didn't want to do it, but I did. And I had a teacher by the name of Yvonne Burkle. She's gone on the other side of the veil today. And I remember the first time I was supposed to do a presentation that, man, I was scared to death. First I thought I was going to die, but I did show up. And then my leg was shaking like this. You know, I was completely out of control. And I said, man, I'm getting out of this class. I'm never coming back. But I did come back. And there was something that she did that made me feel that it was okay, that I was okay. I wasn't perfect at it, but if I just stuck with it, that maybe I could make something of myself in that class. But fast forward, I think many years later, maybe 20, 25 years later, you know, some of my cohorts decided to have a dinner just for her because she was, ailing, and we decided just to honor her. And at one point, we decided that we were each going to just say a few words about what she meant to each and every one of us. And so there were about 4 or 5 of us, and they were all, really accomplished people. I was kind of the low guy on the totem pole, but that's okay. But each of us were talking about not what she taught us and the techniques, but really how she made us feel good about ourselves, how she affirmed the positive things within us. And we were in a kind of a rough school, and there was a lot of stuff going on during that time. But she helped us rise above that. And I think in many ways, she made her life her message to us. And I don't think she believed in God. I think she was an atheist, as I recall. And it kind of reminds me that, Dr. King said something about atheism. He said, there are 2 kinds of atheists. There's a kind of atheism where an individual says they do not believe in God. And then there's an atheism that says, well, I believe in God, but their actions and their life are not in alignment with what they say they believe. And so he was saying they're really 2 sides of the same coin. Some say they don't believe in God. Some say they believe, but they don't really align themselves with their belief. I think today what we're doing is asking ourselves, what is our life saying about our belief? What do we do? How do we respond? What is our motivation? And we want to be able to bring this belief into our stream of life. I recall a story about, a barber in a very tough area of town in Michigan. And he had a lot of at-risk kids that, weren't doing well in school. But he believed in them, and he said, what can I do to help them, elevate their education? And so he came up with an idea. And his idea was that when they came into his barber shop and they got in his barber chair, which I used to do when I had hair, that he would have them read books. And he said, if you read a book while you were getting your haircut, I'll give you $2 off your haircut price. And, the parents, they love this. And they used to come back and saying, as a result of coming to your barbershop and reading the books every time he got a haircut, he now likes to read. His reading level started going up. His behavior in school started changing. His self-esteem started increasing. And so he lived his life in such a way that it gave a message to those who came into his barber chair and made his life his message in that small way, but it made a huge difference in their life. I think when we practice the principles that we know, live in the good that we know, something happens within us. I think we begin to be less judgmental about people around us and begin to see the power and the presence and the love of God that is everywhere and in everyone. You know, Reverend Gale, the Gales are going to do a program on the dark night of the soul, and I remember going through my dark night of the soul. You know, had hit a bottom in my life and drugs, alcohol, and I ended up going to a therapeutic community for a number of months. And I happened to be around people who had really horrific stories if you were just looking at it from a distance, if you didn't know it. And there might have been a lot of judgment there. And now I think about it, they probably had some judgment about me as well, but we might have had judgment about them. But as I got to know them, something shifted within me. It changed me how I saw them. And I was able to walk around and something began to lift the veil where I no longer saw maybe a homeless person, but I saw the image and likeness of God. If I went to the hospital or so on, I didn't see someone who was diseased. I began to see the image and likeness of God. You may go, when I used to visit people in the jails, I didn't see an inmate. I really saw the image and likeness of God. You know, sometimes we have someone who gets on our last nerve. We have to see them as an image and likeness of God beyond the appearances. I think this is the kind of strength that we want to have when we want to make our life our message. We want to emit a vibration. We want to emit a certain energy. We're not trying to pick up things from the world. We're simply trying to emanate who and what we are to be a beneficial presence. I think every time we give up resentment, every time we give up animosity, every time we forgive, every time we serve in some way, we're being that beneficial presence. You know, I was watching the movie Heal, and it reminded me it takes a great deal of faith to participate. It takes a great deal of faith to see through the appearances of what is happening in the outside, the sense of dis-ease, and see beyond that. And to see the presence of God even in the midst of all that's going on. You know, I think in our world we've created these compartmental life, that there's good and there's bad, and all of those things, but there's only God, and we want to be able to give our faith energy to that. Sometimes if we don't, then we lose our connection. And we don't even see the presence of God that's there all the time. You know, there's a story of a particular fisherman. He was always reeking with the smell of fish. Of course, that's what he did for a living, so he would smell like fish. And one day, a rumor came out that he had suddenly become enlightened. He caught the consciousness of oneness. And they rushed to go see this gentleman, but he looked the same, he smelled the same. The people said, "No, we heard that you're enlightened, but you still stink. You smell like fish. You're still fishing. What's the deal about this enlightenment?" And he said, "I really can't explain it to you. But something has happened within me that whenever I show up, dead trees seem to come back to life. People around seem to be healed. I see them differently." He had moved into a space where he was a beneficial presence, and something around him happened. He was connected to something greater within him. He made his life his message, and therefore his life around him began to change. I had the opportunity years ago to have dinner with Maya Angelou. I didn't really know it at the time, but when we had dinner with her, she said, "You cannot order any fish around me," because she was allergic to fish. So everybody had to change their ideas about what they were going to order that night. I don't know why this came to my mind, but she was very clear about that. If you want to have dinner with me, no fish around me. But she was a great storyteller. And she was telling a story about the time that she was in a movie, on a movie set. And the movie's called Poetic Justice, and they had some people in there, Janet Jackson, Michael Jackson's sister, and there was a rapper in there that, anyway, those who follow him, he would be more like, he was their Elvis. You know, he passed away, he was tragically killed in the 90s, I believe, but, you know, they still talk about him today, and his name was Tupac Shakur. He was a very, very special guy. And apparently he had gotten into the dispute with one of the people that was on the set, another actor. And he was just creating all this commotion. And nobody wanted to say anything. Everybody was scared to approach it. And Maya Angelou said that, young man, can I speak to you? And she said that he was just cursing. He said, oh, that's so-and-so. I can't really say the words that he said. And she said, I understand, but may I speak to you? And he said, oh, man, if that sucker comes around me again, I'm going to do this, that, and the other. He said, well, I understand, but may I speak to you? And he went on and on and on. And finally, she said, may I speak to you? And she walked up to him. And she said to him, do you know how important you are? Do you know how valuable you are? And do you know that all of your ancestors who were sold in slavery and sold in auction blocks went through all of that in order for you to be here today to do something important? And she said he began to listen to him. He began to hear what she was saying, that yes, there was something important about him. And she said that she turned him around from all the people that were there, and he began to cry. Tears were coming down his face because something within him had touched him in a way that he had never been touched by a person before. She had affirmed him in a way that he had never been affirmed before. Because of her presence, her beneficial presence made a big difference in his life. And after he went back to his trailer, and she went back to her trailer, she said that Janet Jackson came out to her and said, I can't believe that you talked to Tupac Shakur, and he listened. And she said, I don't even know who Tupac Shakur is. I don't know, Tupac from 4-Pac, from 5-Pac, or whatever. But she just wanted to be a beneficial presence to him. She made her life her message. I think that any spiritual community worth its salt that hasn't lost its favor, hasn't lost its flavor, is to bring to our awareness that our life is part of a divine plan. So we're here to make our life our message. And we look at ourselves and see, what is our message? What are we inscribing on our heart? What are we broadcasting? What are we emanating? What are we revealing? Because nothing is ever hidden, because whatever within us is beginning to outpicture in our life and in our world. And we always have a choice of which direction we're going to go. Sometimes we've identified ourselves with our history and what's happened to us. But that's not who and what we really are. Sometimes we do things based upon false identification and forget that we are one with God, and all of us are children of this Most High presence, and we have the opportunity in our own unique way to broadcast that message wherever we happen to be. And yes, when we go through these experiences, yes, there'll be transformations, there'll be growth, there'll be sometimes we're gnawing and gnashing of teeth as we move forward in our life. But ultimately, we have the opportunity to be in the spirit of so many people like Martin Luther King, like Mahatma Gandhi, like Faith Moran. Our job is to make our life our message and simply to march forth into that message so that we can make a difference in our lives and ultimately in our world. And that's all I got to say about that. Peace and blessings to you today. And just a reminder, did I forget something?
Nope, I did.
Oh, you forgot something. Okay. That's a lot of stuff I put under here.
Stuff here.
All right. Shirley Brown Floral. Oh, yes. The floral arrangement before us, done by Shirley Brown. Yes. Thank you. And speaking of making our life our message, this next week we're going to have Gary Simmons who's going to talk about don't miss your mission. And so that should be a wonderful experience. And there's something else I'm supposed to say I can't remember. I'm not going to forget the offering. I almost forgot. I did that the last time. And, oh, yes, cake. Yes, we have plenty of wonderful cake to celebrate Faith's birthday and any birthday for this month. So go out in the courtyard and have some wonderful cake. And then go and work out. That's what I'm going to do. And like that's prepare now for our love offering, our gifts, and our tithes. And give from that consciousness of abundance. And know that the pennies that were there on your seats really is symbolic of the infinite possibilities, the infinite abundance that is always around us. And as we give it out, whatever we give out comes back to us in so many different ways and supports this community for others who want to have a transformed life and see the possibilities of their spirit. So with that, let us say our offertory blessing together. Divine love, as me, blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, and all that I circulate. Thank you, God.
We have a song to share that exemplifies that just one person's dream can affect so many people. We hope it will be a blessing to you. Just a simple dream, filled with deep desire, just one person's dream, fueled by inner fire, the power of hope and promise, rising from within as vision, passion, and love. Just a simple dream, so much more. As a tiny seed grows into a flower, a heart that holds a dream is an awesome power moving on in faith, pushing ever forward, stretching, yearning to grow. A mustard seed of faith, yet so much more. And the dream goes on and on forever. Have faith, stand strong, growing ever stronger. Oh, let your dreams fly far and long. Sing your song as your dream goes on and on. Just one person's dream, stirring from within them till it's two or three, believing it can happen. Then suddenly the dream has blossomed into something beautiful and real, till everyone can see the power of just one dream. And God has called our hearts
Jennifer hair flip? I did. I did.
I'm going to have to get me a James Brown wig because I can do a hair flip. Will we bless these tithes and offerings, knowing they're going to bless the givers and receivers at all levels of their being as we go forth, multiplying the all good and making our life our message. And so it is, and so we let it be. Amen. And let's join in and sing our peace song. And let us join in and say our prayer for protection. The light of God surrounds